back to World Crisis Radio. So the self-defense measures being considered by Thailand and indeed India, as well as Brazil and Japan, of course, taking the lead with at least central bank intervention. We have the director of the Bank of Thailand, Wongwatu Potirat, and his colleague Subir Gokarn, deputy governor of the Reserve Bank of India. They say action to curb appreciation pressures may be imminent. Mr. Wongwatu said the Thai central bank is considering restrictions on fund flows to try to manage the Thai baht, B-A-H-T, the currency of Thailand, while Gokarn said the Reserve Bank of India is looking for ways to deal with the potential threat of inward capital flows. Now, we've also got this Zolik, let's just mention him, the head of the World Bank, another representative of the international financial oligarchy. He's the one who brings up the full vocabulary about beggar my neighbor. Let's see if we can get this interview with him. He says there's the danger of the outbreak of a global currency war. Unusually blunt remarks as 187 countries gather in Washington. Whenever you have high unemployment, you have risks of other tensions, says Zolik. Today we face currency tensions. Tensions can lead to trouble if not properly managed. If there were ever a time we should not turn our backs on international cooperation, meaning globalization in his view, it's now. He warned of the risk of a debilitating trade war, like the one that broke out during the Great Depression and worsened economic conditions in the 1930s. Direct quote from Zolik of the World Bank, quote, "History shows there is no future in beggar thy neighbor policies." Well, that's not the idea. The beggar my neighbor, Zolik, is you, the U.S. and the British, attempting to destroy the euro. That was great beggar my neighbor. And now you want to break up China. Their idea is drive up the Chinese currency, bankrupt all those export industries, create huge unemployment, unrest in the Chinese countryside, get a color revolution of some kind going inside China, overthrow the current rulers, and put in some kind of either dismemberment or a puppet state. These usually go together. Now, the thing that's making all of this even more complex, well, one thing is the Nobel Prize has now been given to a leading Chinese dissident, and this is considered the reaction from Beijing this morning very, very angry. They say it's blasphemy to give the Nobel Peace Prize to this Chinese dissident who's sitting in jail. Well, we know the oligarchs of this Scandinavian Nobel Committee. It's a bunch of titled feudal aristocrats with all kinds of intelligence connections. Last year at this time, of course, it was Obama, and after having made themselves into a world laughingstock with that, they've now taken a more sinister turn with this. It's an attempted intervention into the internal politics of China. So that's not going to make it easier to have a negotiated solution to anything at the IMF. So they're going to gang up on the Chinese at the IMF, and in the background, the attempt to destabilize China through currency means and then through the activities of these so-called dissidents. Not a good mixture, not likely to lead to a series of concessions that they want or even to a rational dialogue. Now, a couple of other things. The big thing that's making it worse is the dollar right now is very, very weak. The dollar is at 140 to the euro. Now, you'll remember earlier in this year, the dollar was about 150 to the euro. During the attack, essentially into May, it got down to $119 to a euro. Now it's back up to 140. So the euro has made up much of the ground lost. Not that that's necessarily a good thing, but it's not going to collapse. So the attempt by the Anglo-Americans to collapse the euro is a tremendous failure, and that's why the pressures of depression are going back to the dollar. However, to make it all worse, the stupid Bernanke has now had his public debate with all of the, or almost all, of the regional Fed private banker privateer honchos getting into the act on the debate, right? Everybody has an opinion. Should there be quantitative easing? Yes or no? Quantitative easing 2, QE2, means essentially injecting about $1 trillion of hot money into the U.S. economy to try to restart. It doesn't work, right? We know that hot money doesn't go into production. Hot money will flee to international speculative markets, and that's exactly what everybody can see. So however bad things are now for Brazil, right, these currencies, they've found that the dollar is down 13% since the middle of June. That's just a few weeks. Dollar down 13% since the beginning of the summer. And now there's going to be another $1 trillion of hot money injected. So the dollar is going to go down further under QE2, and therefore the plight of these countries is going to become worse. More hot money goes into them, more inflation for them, but above all, more up pressure on their currency, so their exports are priced out of the world market. And these are countries that do live on exports, not just financial shenanigans like the U.S. So the specter of QE2 by the U.S. Fed makes it all worse. Now, a couple of interesting positions. The BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China. India in the middle of it, China also. Through the Russian deputy finance minister, the BRICS say they don't think it is right to blame, and I have to speak in pretty blunt language, don't blame the depression on exchange rates. In other words, don't blame the economic difficulties of the world on an exchange rate problem. The problems lie elsewhere, says the Russian deputy finance minister, and they promise that there will be strong resistance to any such harsh appraisal of exchange rate policy. In other words, if you try to gang up on China, then Brazil, Russia, India will counteract you. So that's a significant chunk of the world. So the Anglo-Americans are not going to be getting anything like unanimity in their attempt to blame the Chinese for the depression. So we're going to have a meeting. There's already been a meeting of the G20 here on Friday this morning for breakfast. There's a meeting of the G24. Those are the emerging markets. Now, in the middle of this piece of negative news, the Eurogarchs, cretinous Eurogarchs of the Brussels Commission, have rejected the Tobin tax. This puts the ball back in the court of Germany. In particular, Finance Minister Schäuble will have to do something, put up or shut up at this point. Remember, we had been told by Barroso, the Portuguese mini-fascist who dominates the European Commission, Barroso said that he would have an answer in October concerning the Tobin tax, the financial transfer tax. Well, it's October, and the answer is no. So they're not interested. The European Commission, Eurogarchs, and oligarchs all have rejected the Tobin tax. They say, no, we can't do that by ourselves. We can only do that in the context of a world Tobin tax. Well, fine, let's have everybody do it at the same time. But this, of course, a cop-out. What they're responding to is Trichet and the European Central Bank had previously said no to a tax on financial turnover. And again, it's the French aristocracy before 1789, the privileges of the Second Estate, right? The aristocrats in France were not taxed. So these bankers are the French aristocrats of our day. They say, we will not be taxed. European Central Bank says no, and the European Union says no. So time to redouble the efforts to impose the transfer tax on financier oligarchs, and we'll be back in a minute.